He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Attention, citizens of fair Gotham, and welcome once again to Bat Minute Forever, the show that spanks each minute of Joel Schumacher's masterpiece. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And here, slip and sliding across your giant luxury table, it is I, Niall McGowan.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that. But we are joined once again by our very special guest. We have Maria Lewis, a journalist, author, and podcaster.
Thanks for having me back as I carefully negotiate descending down a couch as it flips over.
That is fascinating when we get there. What the hell is going on with that whole scene?
I love a good, tag you're it scene. And I also love anything that is very much inspired by dance moves, pioneered by Janet Jackson, J-Lo, any of the other fly girls from that era, where you sit on a chair or you stand on the edge of a chair and you ride that bad boy down to the ground. Underrated stunty trick.
The real Gene
Slow
Kelly
impact,
magic going on
it's
here.
effective. I love it. Yes, very Gene Kelly.
Well, the minute in question is minute 93, and it starts with Harvey's favourite kind of talk, things in doubles, and it ends with chasing Chase.
Yeah. At this point, people know me, know I love a good dad joke, but it's just the whole no killing, and then that goes double for you. It's just all right, we get it. Just get on with the goddamn home invasion, would you?
Yeah, so far, we've said that Riddler always respects the duality of Two-Face. He's respecting the pronouns. But here it seems a bit mocking, like he's just making fun of him.
I suppose maybe they've gotten to a point in their relationship where they can kind of kid each other and stuff.
Yeah. They've known each other for 5 seconds. That's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's met Sugar and Spice by this point, so you're really in. Once you met Sugar and Spice, you're family.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm actually kind of disappointed that Sugar and Spice, one, just don't feature in Batman media more often, and two, that they weren't brought for this, because this would have been if you want to go full-on 60s Batman, which was Joel Schumacher, he's getting there. Of course, next movie he's going to be living there. But this would have been an opportunity for, the goons go after Bruce, and then Sugar and Spice have a fight with Chase.
Yeah.
So that's always the way it used to be back in the 60s shows. Batgirl will fight the female villains and stuff like that. And, it could have been actually a nice opportunity. I would have appreciated had they done that. And then at the end, when Chase and Robin are in those tubes, Sugar and Spice have got their arms in slings and black eyes and stuff. It's Chase Meridian could hold her own against them, but sadly that was not to be.
Yeah, and I know you guys are all about Sugar and Spice because it's your logo for the show.
Yeah.
So I was okay, I'm in safe company. I shall agree to do this show purely because their logo is Sugar and Spice.
They are underused in the whole film in general. I would like much, much more of them.
Especially for how much they have to wear. It would be. I don't know what their day rate was. I'm sure it was fine because Debbie Mazar and Drew Barrymore were both names in in the 90s and 95 especially, but especially just the 90s in general. But the amount of reinforced steel and the amount of eyebrow plucking, the amount of shimmer shadow that had to be applied from lid to eyebrow is crazy. They should have been in the movie for 70% of it, given everything that they have to have barnacled to their body.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't go that. I'm just thinking maybe they were going to be, and they decided there's already too many big characters, too much personality going on. You can't throw more into the mix. You just need faceless goons.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have had 3 less Riddler quips and bumped those 2 up.
Well, speaking of the Riddler, I mean, he reveals that his cane is a kind of skeleton key sort of device.
Basically, it's the sonic screwdriver from Doctor Who. That's what he's got. It's this thing that scans something and somehow opens doors, and it's like, what? What is this? Like, when you're watching it casually, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, he has a scanner and his cane. Now it's like, what was he scanning for? Like, bats?
A power source? Because I imagine the Batcave uses a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I was just like, maybe he's scanning for like rubber or something.
Yeah.
It's a rubber detector.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder about that. I mean, like, yes, okay, I'm sure that Batcave does use a lot of energy, but considering that it's so far underground and in an actual cave, like not a metaphorical cave, I feel like they would have their own entire generator and system, like hooked up. Like I don't know. Yeah, I'd be really curious as to what he's looking for too.
It is weird, and it's not really mentioned in any of the extras or anything. They don't really talk about that. Just like, oh yeah, he's in the house.
Oh yeah, it's even the novelization, which is trying to rationalize everything with Batman Forever. If you haven't come across it, Maria, I highly recommend actually buying the novelization for Batman Forever, because it's like the guy, he really tries to fix all the problems of the movie, and it's actually really, really good.
It's like, for real, one of my dreams. It's been a career dream of mine to get hired to do novelizations, and my agent thinks I'm an idiot. Like, he's based in London, and he's like, what the you mean you want me to put you up for novelization work? He's like, you have your own like your own original characters as part of a series. They do well, they sell, they get awards. Like, why would you want to do novelizations? I was like, you don't understand, man. Like, the Relic the Relic wasn't a novelization, but like it was a book, and then they did a movie, and then they did a novelization of the movie, which was based on a book. And I was like, that's a dream. I wanted to, like, I had the Fifth Element novelization. I was obsessed with that. I used to try and get them all, because they would have them at my library, and I was like, grew up a quite poor kid, so we like didn't have many books at home, and my local library would have all the novelizations for whatever the new movie was that came out, including all the episode by episode novelizations for X-Files, which I wasn't allowed to watch on TV because it was like too scary and, you know, up too late and adult themes and all this. My grandparents wouldn't let me watch it, so I used to like get around it by reading the novelizations of the X-Files episodes, which were great, like really good.
I was obsessed with them as a kid. It was the only way to get me to read, because I loved film so much. It was the easy in. Like, oh, well, you like Star Wars. Here's a Star Wars book. Read that. And it worked. Like, I absolutely loved. I understand now that it's actually better. I loved the Howard the Duck novelization.
Oh, yeah. Howard the Duck novelizations. I think that's written by a guy who knows how ridiculous the movie is. So he's making fun of it as he goes along and stuff. But, no,
and the great thing with a Howard the Duck novelization is you don't have to look and Howard the Duck on screen. So that really overcomes the big hurdle of the movie.
Yeah. Although appropriate enough, though, like one of my favorite TV shows of recent years, You're the Worst, has like the main character is like a really pretentious writer. And at one point his manager gives him like, oh, you got all these options of things to do. And he's like, you got novelization work? And he's like, no goddamn way. And then they're like, what's for NCIS LA? Appropriately enough with Chris O'Donnell. And he's just like, NCIS LA? Oh, I'll do that. Like, because he just, for some reason, even though he's like this real upper crust toff who just like really looks on his nose at most culture, he loves NCIS LA. So he's like, oh, I'll do that totally.
See, this is what I'm saying. I seriously, like, I want that. Whatever, if there's anybody listening who is one of those like niche sort of like publishers that, you know, hand out novelizations to people, I am unironically 100% in. Like, give me that shit. It sounds so fun. I want to do it for the dumbest thing possible, but also if it's something interesting, I'd be 100%.
Nope.
Like,
you need to do it for the Batman.
Could you imagine?
If we get enough money on the Patreon here, we'll commission you to do a novelization of Batman. You can just cover every episode, novelize that.
So meta. But you know something that really probably, and I looked because I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it here in Australia, but a movie that could have done with a novelization, like as an attached sort of piece of marketing, was the movie Underwater with Kristen Stewart and Vincent Cassel that came out earlier this year. Because it was a good movie and it was like, the world building was really interesting. There was just a few things like in execution. We're like, man, you got to really crack the shit with a novel. Like if you just had a little bit more space, it just would have been really great.
Do you think now, though, that you're like, everyone's been quarantined, maybe if you have any extra time, you could be like, can I do like a spec novelization? Can I just
Extra
write the
time,
novelization for
that?
Underwater and then just go and go, does anyone want this? And they're like...
Who wants my underwater fanfic? Probably not the first Kristen Stewart fanfic I've written, but who knows?
That'd be amazing, just turning up to a studio like, I've written a novelization for you.
People do that. Legitimately, people do that. Yeah, there was a guy... I don't know if I should tell... Okay, I'm going to tell this story vaguely because I got told this story by someone I'm working for. But there was a guy who flew in from, I believe it was South Africa, and he wanted to be Green Lantern in some kind of Green Lantern property, TV, movie, whatever. So he lands at LAX, and then he walked from LAX to Burbank, which, like, I don't know how well you know LA, but that's like at least two days, and God knows how many like near death incidences, and gets to the place where it's relevant for him to audition, I guess you could say, and then dresses up as Green Lantern in front of like the lunch trucks that come out the front of the studio as everyone's getting their lunch. And they ended up having to call security and call cops because he was just out there auditioning for Green Lantern. He's like, I've flown here, I'm doing this, I've walked for 2 days straight, that's like crazy shit.
Although weirdly enough, because we talked about it last movie, that's taken a page out of the Sean Young book of like, I'm just going to march into Tim Burton's office dressed as Catwoman. And he's going to have to cast me because, like, look how dedicated I am. And then Tim Burton hid under his desk until she went away and stuff.
I mean, yes. It's either going one of two ways. You're getting the gig or you're getting arrested. And that's just how it is.
But although I'm talking about things like, you know, that were on television, as we were back then with the novelization stock, I couldn't help but notice the little scanner that Riddler has on his cane reminded me a lot of the front of Kit in Knight Rider. And as we mentioned there just the other week, Val Kilmer was the voice of Kit in one of the Knight Rider reboots they did in the mid-2000s. So I guess
everything's connected.
That's a happy coincidence.
It's all connected. I love that.
It is. This gave him the idea. Like, oh, maybe one day I could be Kit.
Although now, though, because we get into full-on wacky Jim Carrey shtick.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was actually going to get to when I said we're talking about Jim Carrey ages ago, right? So he comes out with the best and worst line. He just goes, like, the door pops open with his cane.
Yeah, somehow. No idea how he does it.
I'm guessing it's an electronic lock, so he's popped it open. He just goes, spank me! Which is how Jim, how Ace Ventura, how The Mask. What's his name in that? Stanley Ipkiss?
Yeah, Stanley Ipkiss, that's right.
And you know that line was probably improvised as well, too. You know, like it probably had something else in the script. He's like, this calls for a spank me.
Yeah. The original spin-off single was going to be called Spank Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. And then like that was Joel Schumacher's insistence. And then you two were like, we're toning it down, Joe.
Oh, God, I hate that so much.
Can we please cover the song now, but change that lyric?
But I have to ask, though, what is your... What was your feeling for Jim Carrey, and where does it stand now? But like, were you a fan back in the day, or have you always been like? Again, the other Australian we've had on this season, Dale Kingsmill, and she's a lot younger. Like she's like early 20s. She's had a real like Jim Carrey kind of attitude about her. So it might be a generational thing.
I guess maybe, I don't know, I think, like, because the Riddler was always my favourite Batman villain, so I had been reading Batman comics for years, like, it was one of the first things comic books were kind of like my entry point to reading, and specifically, like, Batman and a lot of, like, DC stuff, Birds of Prey, Cascade's Batgirl, that kind of thing, so I loved him as the Riddler, but be this version of the Riddler, like, it was just something that I was obsessed. It just hit me at that perfect time. And I still, like, to this day, like, people look back, and I don't think this portrayal has aged very well. I don't think people look back fondly on Jim Carrey as the Riddler at all. And people always talk about it in the context of, oh, well, it could have been Eddie Murphy, which would have been amazing to see, don't get me wrong. But I genuinely love his portrayal in Batman Forever, especially when you think, like, it comes in between Dumb and Dumber and an Ace Ventura sequel and The Cable Guy and Liar Liar. Like, this is all in a stretch of like 4 years, right?
He was the hottest actor around.
Oh my God. And especially when he started dipping into the Truman Show, I think, was a real like, that was a moment I was like, oh, he can act. And then Man on the Moon was only a few years after that.
Yeah.
As well, and even The Grinch. I think The Grinch is really underrated. Like, he's really great in it. I think the last thing I saw him in, to be honest, was The Bad Batch. He plays the hermit in that, which was the Anna Lily Omnipore. Am I saying Anna?
Yeah, I
Lily
think so.
Omnipore movie. The girl who did yeah, it was like cannibal western, and she did A Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night as well, which is a really great.
Apparently she's doing a remake of Cliffhanger now, which is what?
Okay.
How did this happen? But
shut.
Apparently,
my God, that thrills me because I love Cliffhanger. I love a Rennie Harlan joint. Like, I unironically really love Rennie Harlan. Cutthroat Island slaps. Then he is a really great filmmaker. Deep Blue Sea is genuinely good. The Covenant, terrible, but it's really fun because they're witches but with dicks. Anytime Rennie Harlan's like involved or around, I'm actually genuinely really interested in this.
Yeah, I can't see her doing the movie, but I'm also then fascinated. What's this version of Cliffhanger going to be?
I think at the minute it's very scarce details, but I know Jason Momoa is in it, but he's not. Apparently, it's going to be like a female Sylvester Stallone. So it's like Jason Momoa is there, but he's not the lead and stuff.
Yeah, that's how you do it. You make it like The Descent. You make it like a survivalist movie where it's like, I think one of the great things about The Descent in particular was like, okay, yes, you've got like humanoids that live in a cave underground. It's a horrible situation, but all of the women in that movie are incredibly capable. They're like spelunking for fun. Who does that? And that is like efficiency porn. Like, it's a really amazing movie to watch because you're like, oh, I would have been dead 25 minutes ago. But if you do it in that kind of vein, like The Descent but above ground, oh, that would be amazing. Throw Gina Carano in there, like that would be great.
Oh yeah,
hell yeah.
That's actually perfect casting as well as Gina Carano. So it's like, if Anna Lily Omnipore is listening, there you go. The work's done for you. But
you can have that one for free, Anna. Go home, sign it up. Let's get it going.
But one thing though, within the minute, another thing we have to check with every guest is, of course, the Riddler. In a bizarre sort of twist, we complained when Robin crashed into the Batcave, all the stuff came on automatically, which was like, that's a bit inefficient, isn't it? And now he has to actively turn it on, and he can also do that with his cane, because this cane is the sonic screwdriver from Doctor Who. It can do everything. But then he, of course, brings up the Batmobile and says, oh, now that's impressive. I am a major fan of this Batmobile. Maria. John, not so much. Where do you land with it?
Look, I respect that it looks like a giant black dildo on wheels. It's like very much like H.R. Geiger. You know how he was like, make everything out of dicks? Yeah. And Joel Schumacher was like, no, just make it a dick. It's very stylish. I mean, obviously impractical, but Joel Schumacher's Batman lives in a hyper-realized version of reality. Like, nothing's designed to be practical. I love the way that it fits with this world and his vision, and specifically the art direction and the production design. It doesn't really work outside of that. Like, you could take Chris Nolan's Batmobile or even the Matt Reeves Batmobile that we've seen little snippets of, and you could pretty much supplant them in different movies. But this Batmobile kind of only specifically works in Joel Schumacher's Batman, and I like that about it. Like, even I like that somebody was trying to shoot for the stars, you know, and they didn't quite get there, but like I like when people take a swing, and that's what this whole film feels like, and that's what the Batmobile feels like as well. It's like he had a really clear vision. He was going to do the 60s Batman series on cocaine, and he gave it a shot, and a lot of people hated it. It made a lot of money, and it has aged semi-well.
But so in the minute, the goons then burst in on Bruce and Chase.
Yeah, and they are ready to go. Like, Chase Meridian, not even a moment of like, what the hell's happening? She's like, oh, Right, just like,
she's somebody who lives on the edge, and given her penchant for traumatized bad boys and boxing in the middle of the day, she's someone who I think has to be ready for anything to happen at any moment.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be like, it's like a reflex action. She's trained for this.
There was something I did see quite recently. I'm trying to think of what it was now, where it was like the end of the world started to happen. And then there was like a random housewife. She just instantly sprung into action and knew exactly what to do. And the whole kind of mystery is like clearly she's been trained for this for some reason, and nobody knew why. But it was like,
it's a very long kiss goodnighty in a way.
yeah. Or even like in The Hunt that came out recently, like all these people are abducted, and then Betty Gilpin, she's just instantly like, okay. So she just starts getting things sorted. She just knows what to do because she's like, I guess for whatever reason, she's been kind of prepped for this kind of thing.
Yes.
So she's like, all right, well, okay, but I need to find a compass and all this kind of stuff. It's like, and Chase Meridian is just like, there's a bunch of goons bursting in. We're going. We're like, I am running.
Well, sadly, though, Bruce didn't get to reveal his secret. What a shame. What a shame.
She doesn't know by now.
Yeah.
But then we get to my favorite bit, right?
Oh, here we go.
The way the goons run at them.
Oh, God.
Why do they do this? Why don't they just go straight for them? They like run behind the sofa and make them leap over the sofa.
It's like they're playing netball, and they're really bad wing defenses, and like Bruce and Chase as center and wing attack are just on it. They're seeing those holes and they're running towards them.
They've been training in secret. Yeah.
My one big disappointment with this minute, though, is that they could have had a potential callback that they don't do, where one goon has Chase, and then Bruce springs into action, does a slip and slide across this long table into the guy, which kind of looks half accidental. It looks very farcical in a weird way.
I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually a very fun scene. Like, in terms of the physicality of it, like how that must have been rehearsed and the blocking and just the way it's shot. It's a really enjoyable scene to watch. There's a lot of people in a very small space, and it goes a lot better than you think it would.
Yeah, but the one thing that frustrates me is that because we've done these movies minute by minute, we spend about 5 minutes with Bruce and Vicky at a really long table in Wayne Manor. And it's like, why isn't it that table? You could have brought it back. They could have had that table feature
you've just given me traumatic flashbacks to 89 Batman. God, kill me.
But then the guy sliding table would either have to slide across that massive table or he'd stop halfway.
Yeah, that would be Austin Powers-esque, just like halfway across the slide, having to get up and slide again.
Yeah.
You're right, though. It looks accidental. Was he trying to just jump up onto the table and slip? Like,
Batman does what he has to do, John.
Although it's a defensive measure that Alfred's put in place. He's like, I'm really going to wax all of these tables.
Yeah, he's the accidental hero we deserve and the one we need.
I will have to say, though, as well, like, we did skip past it, but the child within me would not be happy if I didn't at least bring up, after, when the Riddler's in the Batcave, he does like, oh, that's impressive, and then he flips his cane and jams it into the stone ground of the Batcave.
Yeah.
And I know, because I was a kid, and we, when this movie came out, really obsessed with Batman. We have a stone garage, like the stone floor to the garage, and a paving out in the back garden and stuff. And you better believe I was going around pretending the broom was a cane and trying to jam it in to the stone ground to see if it could do it. Because if Jim Carrey can do it, like, that guy's got no muscle definition. Like, if he can do it, then I can do it. And let me
went through 20 canes.
I was literally going to grinding the friggin' broom handle into the stone floor. Nothing. It would not happen.
I mean, and we only really get a taste of it in this minute, but whoever has the next minute, I'm very excited, because pretty much every second that Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma / the Riddler is in the Batcave is fun. Like, it's really delightful. It's like, it's one of those sort of hallmarks of any Batman thing is like somebody's got to discover the Batcave at some point, whether it's like Joseph Gordon-Levitt and a water feature coming up in like the final minutes of Dark Knight Rises or whatever, but like it's just one of those thrills. Like, every time somebody's in the Batcave who shouldn't be there, I'm like, oh yeah, this is my shit. This is what I want.
I love it. It's great. And Jim's reveling in it in his acting here, like, because it's going intruder alert, intruder alert. So he just repeats it back, intruder alert, shut up!
It really makes me feel like it must have been ADR too, because I was always, we mentioned it earlier when you first hear the alarm, like way back when Dick Grayson breaks in. I always thought it was saying intruder intolerant, because the way it says intruder alert, it sounded weird to me. And the fact that Jim Carrey wouldn't be riffing on the fact, like, that sounds weird. I feel like they must have added in that alarm afterwards.
Yeah, that's ADR after the fact for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, you can, in talking about that, Maria, like, to read the scripts, like, it's literally like Riddler goes into Batcave, blows up something, and then you could just tell, like, this was like, okay, Jim, you're on set for the day, do whatever you want. Like, just go and just be Jim Carrey and just throw things around, we'll add in explosions, it'll be fine. Like, just blow up that room, and just say whatever you want to say, and we'll put it together in editing. Like, you can really tell, like, that was the kind of thing, like, we hired you for a reason, because we know that you can do this, so by all means, just go and have fun with it yourself and whatnot.
Yeah, and it feels fun. Like, it feels like he's having, and maybe it is the amount of cocaine everybody on set likely did before calling action, but it feels fun watching it, and I think that's kind of infectious in a way. Like, sometimes you have those comfort movies that you have playing in the background as you work or you do whatever, and like Batman Forever is a movie that I genuinely love and would engage with, but B, it is also a comfort movie for me, so it is something that sometimes I'll put on in the background and just have in the background. But when this scene is on, and like essentially from the moment he kind of like very cartoonly skips into the Batcave, I'm like, oh, I'm watching every second of this. Like, this is engaging my eye, because it's just like, it's so thrilling to watch.
One other thing, though, as well, is that I know, John, you've been keeping an eye on the Riddler's brothel creepers that he has.
Yeah.
I was weirded out to find out they're like brothel creeper sandals, it looks like. It's like he's got the heel of them, but then the top is just...
There's a lot of questionable shoe choices in this movie, for sure. Like, not just Sugar and Spice and all the horrible shit they have to wear, but like the Riddler stuff. There's a few times it cuts back and you're like, are they slippers? Like, is that a type of slipper? Is it like a ballet flat? Like, what's the sole support system?
No, I think I'm looking at them now. Hang on. I think they just are the same color green as the suit, Niall. I think they're just because they have a monk buckle.
Yeah, I thought that was it. Like, it was only the buckle that was holding them on, and like maybe had a little bit at the tip. But like, it looked at me as if like, no, he's just got the onesie on, and then these brothel creeper sandals. In a bizarre way, but
right.
maybe it is the same.
Yeah, I think it's just the same green, because I've gone frame by frame and you can see them bend and fold as he walks.
Yeah, bend folds,
which I don't think his suit would do.
Yeah.
But I know you're pressed for time, Maria, so we'll tear on here. But
it's late in the evening in Australia, late at night on a Saturday.
One thing we do, though, before the guest goes, is we sort of ask them about their history with the movie, and just like, do you have the floor to sort of talk about this film and your memories with it, and your any other thoughts you have about it in general. So if you have any parting thoughts for Batman Forever, by all means, go ahead.
How long have you got? No, I had just moved over from New Zealand, and so I just moved to Australia, and I didn't have any friends. I had a weird accent. I was like really struggling to fit in this new place that we'd moved to, and my sort of comfort was pop culture, specifically comic books and movies. And like as mentioned, like I didn't grow up very well off, and so we didn't go to the movies very often because it was expensive. Even back then, it was like fucking $12, not like $25 now, but even that was too expensive. But there was this one cinema that did $5 movies, and so they would play movies for $5, and it was at that stage where they weren't playing in main exhibition anymore, but before they'd made it to like VHS. And so it was that in-between period, where you'd have to wait like 3 or 4 months. And I remember going to that cinema with my mum to see it and just being absolutely enthralled. Like, we went to like a 1 p.m. session or something on a Sunday, so it might have even been cheaper, but it was just like, I was just obsessed. And here in Australia, they did like a run of Batman and Forever glasses that you could get from Hungry Jack's, which is our version of Burger King. And so they were these collectible glasses you got with a meal, and they were so fucking cool. They were like plastic, but it was kind of like frosted plastic. And so they tied in for Batman and Robin as well. I'm not sure if they were supposed to look like something from Mr. Freeze's gun or whatever, but all the characters, so you could get like a Riddler one, you could get a Two-Face one, you could get a Batman one, a Robin one, not a Chase Meridian one, I don't think. I think they just kept it to the dudes because the patriarchy extends to even Batman merchandise. But they were just the best, and they were those things that like everyone was trying to collect those glasses, and they were pretty hardy. Like you could probably smash a pint in one of those. Maybe there'd just be like a little bit left in the bottle, but you could like fit quite a bit of liquid in them. And so I was just like, this is my shit. This was like everything I'd been reading and connecting with, like what my friends were on the page. And then it was like the first, probably one of the first Batman things I ever saw. I think I was into the animated series, and my granddad used to play the 60s show a lot. So I'd seen those, but it was my first experience on the big screen, seeing a Batman thing. And, I've been a lifelong Batman fan ever since before, and then ever since I've got a Batman tattoo. Like I've, done all kinds of work in and around Batman related properties. And yeah, it's just been something that I'm a lifelong obsessive with. Gotham specifically, I've got a Huntress tattoo as well. I'm a big Birds of Prey fan, and Gotham's daughter, as she's called. But, anything sort of in and around that area. I love a caped crusader. I love a vigilante. I love somebody who, like, has a fucking vision, and no matter how crazy everybody else says it is, they really go hard and, like, chase that vision, like Joel Schumacher does in this movie, even though it's just so wild and wacky to look at.
That's great to hear. We've ran the gamut with guests this season. Like we've had people come in and just be like, God, this is awful. And then, but it's nice now to go to the other side again and finally get like someone who does have a deep love for it as well.
Oh, so. I love it. I mean, like, to be fair, if I had to like rank my Batman movies, it's like, obviously Dark Knight. I really like Dark Knight Rises, probably number 2, and Batman Begins. But my number 4, like equal number 4, is maybe this and Batman Returns. Like it depends which day you ask me. And that's saying a lot because like I think the 60s Batman movie's good, but also there's so many good, like Mask of the Phantasm, which we were talking about off air, like the Lego Batman movie. There's a lot of really good Batman movies. And I think honestly this is one of them. You gotta respect it. Like it's such a flex, man. I really think it's so, Joel Schumacher is such a weird filmmaker. He did this movie, Veronica Guerin. Have you guys ever seen that?
Oh, well.
You're Irish, right? So you have to see it. It's compulsory viewing. But, like, of all the fucking things, like, all the hallmarks that you know Joel Schumacher for, like, In Excess videos and, like, Lost Boys and fucking Flatliners and, all the stuff that you associate with him, Veronica Guerin is the kind of movie where you're like, that is such a fucking weird choice for him to make as a filmmaker. Batman Forever makes sense on the page, but this is Apex Mountain for Joel Schumacher. He's never hotter, bigger, more successful, more popular than he is, right? As this movie's coming out, it's weirdly fucking wedged between John Grisham movies. Like, I think, because he did The Client, which I love, but The Client comes out, 93 or 94, and then A Time to Kill, which is also great, but in a very, it is very OTT. All of those movies go for 5 hours long and have, big monologues about racism delivered by white people. But those, I just couldn't imagine, you do something like it's like you do Good Will Hunting, and then you do Batman Forever, and then you do, something on a similar vein. It's so weird. He's such an interesting filmmaker.
I just always found that, from doing the research for this, apparently it was early in production of The Client where he was offered, apparently the way he says it, Warner Brothers brought him in and said, "We're offering you our biggest asset," which is the way they phrased, "We want you to make a Batman movie." And I can't imagine having to go and make a serious, down to earth drama when the entire time in the back of your head, I get to make a Batman movie. Who cares about this anymore?
Coming off that point too, okay, yeah, he'd done, St. Elmo's Fire, fine, whatever. Okay, Incredible Shrinking Woman, if we're going way back. But, Lost Boys is probably the closest thing comparatively, in terms of it's speculative fiction, it's high fantasy, it's aimed at a younger audience. that's the closest thing to, like, you could understand why you would give somebody the job after Lost Boys. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in between that you're like, what the f***? We're giving Batman to the Flatliners guy? Like, really?
Well, that's the weird thing, though. Is I was actually at one point rewatching Flatliners, and I was sending John pictures, like screenshots, as I was going, because like there's just scenes out in the street where you're like, this is Gotham. He's already made it.
Yeah.
There's just like random neon paint everywhere.
So true. I know, and you know that you watch the Flatliners. I guess it is. Oh, it's not really a remake, is it? Because fucking characters from the original pop up. Whatever the version of Flatliners, whatever they call it, a Lego sequel or it's not a remake, reboot, whatever. But that version, one of the things that it really misses is like Joel Schumacher's visual print, like his fingerprint. He's a visual stylist. Like Flatliners is that movie should not look as good as it does. Like he shoots it like a motherfucker. There's like a lot of, especially Flatliners, like a lot of similarities to, this is a filmmaker I don't really like. My best friend is obsessed with him, so I have to bring it up. But Michael Mann's Manhunter, like there's a lot of similarities visually in Manhunter to the stuff that Schumacher is very famous for, even though I think Michael Mann and Schumacher are obviously like very different filmmakers, besides having a penchant for making movies that go for 5 hours long.
I do want to ask though, Maria, like, just because if you really, if you're a big Batman Forever fan, because the minute immediately prior to this scene it has the biggest thing they cut out of the movie. Like, have you looked into all the red leather book stuff and what the actual story with that was and what they ended up? Because that's one of the things. It annoys me that that's been taken out, because that's, to me, like, that's the difference between this being a good Batman movie and that been like, oh, people would say this is one of the best had that been retained within the actual storyline and stuff.
Do you honestly, like, genuinely think that would have made a difference? Do you think people would have been, if that had stayed, if that hadn't ended up on the editing room floor?
I think maybe because we're doing it, maybe it's because we're like, we can't see the forest for the trees, maybe because we're working so close, but like picking up within the screenplay and the novelization and stuff, where like this thread of like Two-Face saying to Batman, "You're a killer like me," gets woven in to then that's what brings up the repressed memory. And then it all ties into Bruce Wayne realizing it's not that he saw a big bat. Like, he actively says, like, it's more than the bat. There's something else there. For him having the realization of, well, even talking with Dick Grayson going, like, you can avenge your parents' death, but you'll still be obsessed with revenge, and you won't know why. Finding out it's actually about, he's repressed the memory of the fact that he blames himself for his parents' death. And all things of, like, Chase Meridian saying to him, what crime could he have possibly done to deserve this punishment? It's like, Batman's always been Bruce Wayne's own, like, sentence and torment to himself rather than to the criminals. I was like, that's an amazingly, like, that's a really great, spin on the character, and it's so interesting. And the fact that they just kind of macheted it out of the movie, it's just like, I really think if that had been there, people would be like, well, it has that whole red leather book. Like, that was a really interesting spin on everything and stuff. But
yeah. No, that's a fair point. It's also like the power of hindsight, though. Like you know the things that people hate about this movie. It being like heavy on visuals and like light on narrative and plot and character motivation and stuff. So it would have been a way to sort of combat those criticisms, which are fair criticisms. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's, the beauty of hindsight. Like, we can look at it back at it now and say that would have made it better. Maybe would have engaged more people with it. Maybe it would have. Or maybe people would have been like, more Drew Barrymore tits, more explosions, more, XYZ thing.
It's a tough one to look back on and, try and make assumptions about what people would have been into. I think it sounds like it would have been a better movie, but who knows? That's
kind of weird for us, because we're just like, it's more of everything. Like, I want more of that. I also want more Drew Barrymore in this film. Like, that's a film that is nothing but excess. I'm like, more! Give me more of it, goddammit.
Yes, more sugar.
Well, we won't give all of you listeners more. We will head off into the dark, dark night. Would you like to tell our listeners where they can find you online and any work you'd like to promote? And then we'll leave you.
Leave me to flutter off into the night, like Chase Meridian looking hornily up at the sky for a bat symbol. So you can find me on Twitter under Movie Maz, but if you just search Maria Lewis, Maria, Lewis, Lewis. That's where I am on Twitter. That's where I am on Instagram, Facebook as well. And I have a website, marialewis.com.au, which can hook you up with all my journalism stuff. I'm a novelist. I have I had a mental blank of how many books I have. I was like, crap, 4, 5? I don't know. I've been talking about Batman for too long. No, I have five books, which are published globally by Little Brown. They are essentially just different spins on traditional monsters through a sort of feminist lens. So if you like things like werewolves and witches and ghosts and ghouls and banshees, if that's kind of your jam, then my novels are available. Who's Afraid 2, It Came from the Deep, The Witch Who Courted Death, and The Wailing Woman. They're interconnected, so characters that are the main characters in one book pop up in another as supporting characters, vice versa. And I have a podcast that's out at the moment called Josie and the Podcats, which is a 6-part limited podcast series. It's kind of more like an audio documentary as we go through the 2001 cult classic Josie and the Pussycats. We talk to the star, Rachel Lee Cook, the writers and directors, Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfont. We dive into the history, how Josie and the Pussycats was like tied into the civil rights movement. We talk to Kay Hanley from Letters to Cleo. We just talk to everyone. We literally talk to everybody that we possibly could about this movie and why it matters and get into the nitty gritty. So if you're a fan of, I guess, something else that is comic booky, because Josie and the Pussycats come from comic books originally, then check out Josie and the Podcats, which is part of the One Heat Minute Productions feed, which my best mate Blake takes care of. He did the 1 Heat Minute podcast with Michael Mann that a lot of people are familiar with who froth Michael Mann stuff.
Hey,
That's absolutely
cool.
Really, really love that. The Josie and the Pussycats film. This is like finally it's getting recognition. Although I do
really
know
great.
that because within the Movies by Minutes community and stuff, I know there is talk. Someone is considering doing it minute by minute. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be
Josie
amazing.
and the Pussycats minute by minute. That's really cool. Well, it's the 20th anniversary of the film next year. So, I mean, if they're going to do a minute by minute podcast for it, that's the perfect time, really. This isn't an analysis of the film per se. It's more like playing to my strengths, which is like research, interviewing people, hunting down sources, that kind of thing. And sort of like charting like how did this movie even exist, because it's a pretty it's a wild story. It goes to some unexpected places, like Harvey Weinstein Betty and Veronica movie that was in the works.
God,
I know, right? Like, could you imagine? Just so much crazy stuff. Like, you start down these rabbit holes and then next minute you're like just in places you didn't expect, which is really fun.
Oh.
Well, make sure to check it out, everybody, and come and speak to us on Facebook at the Bat-Minute Listeners Cave, on Twitter at Bat-Minute, Instagram, the Bat-Minute, because we need to sound important on Instagram, you see. We're so big and famous. We need to make sure there are no imitators. And come to our Patreon for more wonderful content. I don't know when this launches, we've probably got a bunch of new stuff out. I don't even know. We're way ahead of schedule here. So check it all out, and we'll see you again next week for more Bat Minute Forever.
Next time, bye-bye Batcave, baby! The King of Conundrums commences his destruction of the Caped Crusaders' Sanctum Sanctorum. Calamity is underfoot, with combustion in the cave. But what felonious fate has been planned above by a bifurcated knave? Find out next week. Same Bat Pod, a different Bat Minute!
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.